Mark, just let me know when you're done, okay?
Okay.
And if it goes longer than the 5 minutes, that's fine. We'll make the amendment later.
So anybody who you're in contact with, tell them to go back to the website, click on the link and refresh another new link. Like, so it's working. The only issue with YouTube is if you stop the stream, you have to create a new link. I had to repost the link, so that's why you have to go back to the site and refresh it. So that's.
Make a motion to resume public.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Back open to public. And thank you, Mark, for restoring the live feed and the sound. We're going to continue with the first reading of policy 9322. Again, I'm reading the sections that are changed or added onto the existing policy. The existing policy is available on the school district website. The amended policy will be available after the first reading. We're moving to the last section where it says hybrid meetings. Should the board intend to hold an in-person meeting during a declared emergency, the board must hold the meeting at a location that will have enough capacity to safely hold the number of attendees that is reasonably expected to attend. If the meeting location has such a capacity where the reasonable expected number of attendees can safely attend with social distancing measures, the board is not required to provide a remote access to the public meeting. NJAC 5391.3B and also 5391.4C, no in-person meeting shall proceed if the room capacity does not permit any member to the public to attend. Should the board choose to conduct an in-person meeting but will not be able to safely accommodate the expected number of attendees, then the board should hold a hybrid meeting wherein the board will follow the steps for both remote and in-person meetings, and the notice of the meeting shall reflect the same. That's 5391.3B. Public participation at board meetings. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. Public participation at virtual board meetings. This is the amended recommendations. Virtual meetings will be held in an electronic platform that can be accessed by the public at no cost. The participant capacity on the platform should not be less than 50 people, excluding those required for the meeting, and will be consistent with the reasonable expectation for an in-person meeting. If an internet-based platform is being used, a phone conferencing line will also be provided to allow access by those without internet access. If a remote meeting is held using video and audio, the public shall have the opportunity to participate in both capacities. In-person meetings cannot prohibit the number of members of the public from attending in person. Presentations or documents that would be viewed or made available at an in-person meeting must be made available on video broadcast or available on the website. Documents that would be made available in hard copy at an in-person meeting must be made available in advance for download through a link that is either included in the meeting notice or near the posting of the meeting notice on the website at the building where the meeting would have otherwise been held. If a meeting is held by audio or audio and video, public comment will be allowed by audio or audio and video. The board will allow public comment to be submitted in advance via email or letter and must be read aloud during the meeting. The board has the discretion to accept text-based public comment during the meeting, example, through a chat feature. The platform used for the remote meetings will allow the board to mute members of the public and will also allow the public to mute themselves. The board must adopt by resolution standard procedures for the public comment at remote meetings and in advance of remote meetings, and must include standards of conduct. The procedures will be read aloud at the beginning of the meeting, including an explanation of the mute function. The procedures must incorporate the ability to facilitate a dialogue with the commenter to the extent that the platform permits, as well as procedures for disruptive, quote, in quotes, members of the public. And that actually concludes the changes, I believe. Now that I'm flipping through this, it appears there might be a missing page. The public and executive sessions in the back, it says page 2, but this is clearly an unfinished line. So we can just check to make sure that this is the fully concluded version. It looks to be it is. It goes through 1 through 7. What's that?
I think it continues here. But meeting at the time when speaking, not continuation. Might add a word.
No, this is the document that was presented, Danielle, or Donna, I'm sorry, that you gave us. The last page. So if you read through what I just read as the changes under public participation at virtual board meetings, that's the number I
Let's do this.
no,
That's all you show.
no, mine is blank. The last page. Right there. Sorry, guys. This is where I It has two, so they're all two? Okay. All right, so basically the packet just that we were given, all the page numbers are 2. So I just want to state that for the record, that it's not that I cannot read the page numbers, it's that the page numbers are not accurate. This was sent over with an edit from the attorney's office this afternoon. So the revised portion of 9322 has been read in its entirety, and there is no missing parts in this first reading. Having read the new policy in its entirety, can I have a motion to approve the first reading of the school policy?
Motion. Second.
So who got that first?
Paul.
Paul,
Thank you.
and then Dale? Any discussion? Mr. Caton, you made a, you said that you wanted to discuss this. Could you explain that, your discussion?
I'm saying this should go to the policy committee so you can work out logistically how that's going to be implemented upon the second reading.
Okay. As we've just implemented the committees, and this policy has been going on since May, I believe. We've been trying to enact this policy. Mr. Kamingo and his partner have thoroughly reviewed this. They have taken input from everywhere, including the state guidelines, the Department of Community Guidelines, Community Affairs, thank you, and also from other school districts. He has referenced the fact that they are more than willing to help us facilitate implementing this policy and making suggestions that have worked for other clients of theirs. So I think this has moved, this isn't for policy committee at this time, because this board had been operating as a board of the whole, and as we took into this initiative at the beginning of January, we've agreed to move this policy forward, which is why we went to the first reading tonight. So it is my belief and my recommendation that we proceed here, as well as with a second reading going forward on February 8th, and continue in this particular situation as a board of the whole. Is there any further discussion? We move to a vote, please.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Brisland?
Yes.
Ms. Christman? Yes. Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Pulaski? Yes. Ms. Van Ness? Yes.
Motion carries. being the first reading. F1, be it resolved at the recommendation of the superintendent that the Montague Township Board of Education approve December 29th, 2020 through January 25th, 2021 bill list attached and listed below. Have a motion. Paul?
Second.
Dale, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call please.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisland?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky?
Yes.
Ms. Venice? Yes.
Motion carries. F2,
On the next one, I'd like to make a motion to table until we had an adequate amount of time to review the audit report.
let me read it and then F2, be it resolved at the recommendation of superintendent that the Montague Township Board of Education accept the annual audit for the year ended 2019-2020. The audit report is included in section 2, the financial section of the comprehensive annual financial report, and that attached corrective action plan to be implemented. Do I have a motion?
Well, motion to table until the next meeting.
I second it.
I'm sorry, what was the reason for the table?
We just got it tonight, Glenn. I'm seeing this audit report for the first time tonight.
Mr. Plotsky, did you have any response?
Well, it's just that, I received an email that appears to be dated January 23rd at 4:56 p.m. And I'm looking at the various attachments, one of that actually was, two of which are identified F2 PDF. Actually, I'm sorry, my eyes, one of which is labeled F2 PDF. So it may be that Mr. Brisland didn't get to look at it until this evening, but we certainly had it in a timely fashion.
Actually, Mr. Plotsky, because you weren't here at the beginning, we now have a book. We have an additional paper that came directly from the auditors, and we have a second book. So there's two books, a hard copy, a soft copy, and the additional paper that she gave us, including their presentation. So I would have to agree with Mr. Brisland, not all items were available through the agenda simply because they couldn't be sent. There was a summary provided in the agenda, but if Mr. Brisland wants to review all of the items, he's not asking for something beyond reasonable request.
It's a 2-week delay for approval. That's what I'm asking for, is a 2-week delay to vote on this.
Are you suggesting that the materials that you received tonight were not in your packet?
No,
I'm not suggesting that at all.
So you just didn't review the packet?
What I'm suggesting is I now have a hard copy. And there's no reason we couldn't have had that hard copy a couple of weeks ago.
What we received in our email was basically a summation, and now we would like to review the book that we have. So there's a motion to table, and I did second.
Okay, I didn't get,
Let me go from here.
where it was moved by Paul,
Absolutely.
and then you seconded Denise, correct?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? We'll do a roll call on the motion to table this.
For the next meeting, you guys are tabling it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, that's what's on the floor.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisland?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky? Ms. Venice?
No.
The motion does carry. The review of the report will be carried over to February 8th, I believe is the date for the next regular meeting. Move to F3, be be it resolved that the recommendation of Superintendent of the Montague Board of Education approve the Board Secretary's Report A-148 for the month of December 2020.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisling?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky?
yes,
Ms. Venice? Yes.
Move to F4. Be it resolved that the recommendation of Superintendent, the Montague Board of Education move to transfer school monies report A-149 for the month of December 2020.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing no discussion, move to roll call.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisling?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky?
yes,
Ms. Venice? Yes.
Move to F5. Pursuant to NJAC 6:23A-2.11C3, the Board of Education certifies that as of December 31st, 2020, after review of the Secretary's monthly financial reports for December 31st, 2020, the appropriations section, and upon consultation with the appropriate district officials, Montague Board of Ed is in compliance with NJAC 6A23-1 2.11C and shall certify that in the minutes of the board each month that no major account or fund has been overexpended in violation of NJAC 6A-23A-1610, and that sufficient funds are available to meet the district's financial obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Motion.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisling?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky?
yes,
Ms. Venice? Yes.
F6, be it resolved, the recommendation of Superintendent, that the Montague Board of Education approve the attached list of line item transfers effective December 31st, 2020.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisling?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky?
yes,
Ms. Venice? Yes.
Move to F7, be it resolved that at the recommendation of the Superintendent, that the Montague Township Board of Education approve submission of the federal impact grant application for fiscal year 2022 and anticipation of the grant award.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Capone, would you like to comment on what you see this bringing to the board, to the district?
The federal impact aid has been utilized to supplement the budget over the last however many years. I think it's 2002 is when they made the last adjustment in federal impact aid. So this number is set to assist in the services provided to our students on a yearly basis. It's paid out twice a year, and this is money that, as a federal grant, is something that, although it's not guaranteed, has been something that has been consistent.
And this is to offset the amount of land in Montague that's under federal ownership, correct? So it helps the taxpayers.
It's also documented in the performance report.
Yes. Okay, any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Capone. Seeing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Ms. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisling?
Yes.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Ms. Holstein?
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky,
Yes.
Ms. Venice. Yes.
Okay, we have an item that is now part of the agenda under P1. Be it resolved at the recommendation of the superintendent that the Montague Board of Education approve the retirement of Nancy Wright effective April 1st, 2021.
Motion to table. Until our
Second.
next meeting.
So there's a motion to table this resolution on the floor. Denise, you seconded? Discussion? Seeing no discussion, move to a roll call.
Ms. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Bauma,
Abstain.
Mr. Brislin,
Yes.
Ms. Chrisman. Yes. Ms. Holstein,
Yes.
Mr. Plotsky,
No.
Ms. Venice. Abstain.
Motion carries. Motion will be tabled to the next regular meeting, 2/8/2021. Moving to agenda item 8, public session. Public comment is invited on all matters pertaining to the school district. All participants shall be permitted 4 minutes to speak and shall state their name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. Board meetings are a meeting of the board conducted in public, not a meeting of the public conducted in the presence of the board. The board uses public comment period as an opportunity to listen to citizens' concerns, but please be aware that not all issues are brought to a board meeting will be resolved this evening. Rather, the board will, in appropriate cases, delegate the authority to investigate the matter to the superintendent or his designee. Please let the record reflect that the BOE, Board of Education, does not endorse your comments, nor will the Board of Education be held liable for your comments you make about a staff member or another person, which the staff member or other person may consider defamatory or libelous, as that individual retains all rights to pursue any legal remedies against you. Motion to open public comment at 8:49.
So moved. Second.
So that was Paul and Neil. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment is open.
Hi, Krista Mikulski, Elmport. Okay, so I received an email last week from John Halliday letting us know that the late bus, we have to notify the transportation director. And I recall this meeting sometime back that you guys made the decision to do that because it was, you're paying for something that the school was closed, which made sense. So Tim, I sent you an email on Friday asking who the transportation coordinator was because the website didn't indicate it. And I didn't receive a response from you. So I'm wondering why I didn't receive a response from you. And since the people that are your bosses are here, so do I go to you to try to get a response from him? I don't know. My daughter starts swimming in 2 weeks and he's a late bus. So I need to know what I need to do so she has a ride home. So Tim, I know that you and I don't get along anymore, but you should be able to put your personal feelings aside and act like a professional. It's unacceptable that my daughter needs a bus ride home in 2 weeks and you do not answer me to tell me who I need to contact. You know, I don't wish harm on people, but I'm not gonna feel sorry for you when it lands on your front door.
Eleanor Murphy, 15 Plaza Drive. I'd like to go over something on the agenda, A2. Paul, you had a question about if you could get more information now about the special education initiative. the FY 2022. Since you now have committees, this might be something that the Finance Committee can start to look into right away, so that you're prepared for it next year if there is a deadline or anything like that. So just a suggestion if it didn't occur to you.
Ellie, thank you.
Andre Campbell, Armstrong Road. I'd like to know why it's okay for one board member to be able to call in, when in the past, we had another board member that was not allowed to call in. Just a question.
I'll actually take the opportunity to answer it in its sincerity. I reviewed the board policies, and there is a policy for participation by board members granted permission by the board president, and I extended that to Mr. Plotsky tonight so that he could attend. So it is in alliance with policy. I actually believe it's policy 9322, but it is, yes.
And then we
So
just voted to add to that.
So just to answer that question, that's why it was done tonight.
Done previously as well.
Yes, initially, it wasn't allowed. And we weren't board members at the time, maybe other board members who let us know when that changed, because I know Ms. Crispin hadn't been allowed to do so and was basically forced to attend meetings. And then obviously there was a change made to the policy that now allows the virtual, someone to, Mr. Plotsky, as obviously to participate. So that happened at that time. I wasn't here, neither was Barbara, so we're not aware when that.
Exactly, so I'm only answering for why it was done tonight. I'm not answering for the past. It was done tonight because according to policy, I'm able to extend it. So, if there's no further public comment, a motion to close public comment at, 8:53.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, I'm just recording that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public closed now. Moving on to unfinished business. There's a couple items to address here. First, I'd like to update the board on the request for proposal for legal services. You now have the copy of the advertisement that was run in the Sunday New Jersey Herald. Reflected in this advertisement, this request for legal services will be extended through Wednesday, February 10th, 2021, with a closing time of noon. The service also, the ad also reads that this would be a period commencing March 1st to December 31st. And in the details of the RFP process, it discusses that there is an executive, I want to make sure I use an evaluation committee. So I'd like to consult publicly here, Mr. Capone. What exactly is the evaluation committee that was included in the request for proposal, and or Mr. Eric left? He's going. So would you care to comment on?
No, we have to answer it directly.
Okay. I'll be reaching out to the board members. I'll reach out back to Jeff or John immediately after this meeting through email. And I will ask them specifically what an evaluation committee is and if that's spelled out, who consists of it. We may have to have a special meeting to have that evaluation committee established. And If that's required, then I obviously will be taking action to call for a special meeting to do so. Okay. Another thing I had on my list under unfinished business was the HVAC update, which Mr. Capone did during his superintendent report. Could you just please repeat that for us, because Mr. Plotsky wasn't with us, and I'd just like for him to have that information as well.
January 11th and 12th, Edison Energy came in and did their evaluation of the HVAC system, and we are waiting for the report.
Do you have a date that you're expecting that report by?
I do not.
Would you be able to get us that date and provide it at least to me so that I'm aware?
You can reach out to Edison Energy to see when they'll be
Great, thank
waiting for the
you.
report.
Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry, and there was also a COVID update.
Oh, Mr. Are you asking him?
Oh, no, I was wondering if you wanted to repeat that for Glenn. Who was it?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, so you're gonna need to
Part of the
clarify.
CSA report was that he gave an update on the percentages of COVID, and that the increase there's been a tremendous spike.
Oh,
And I thought that Mr. Plotsky might want to hear that. And those are the two things that he discussed.
Mr. Capone, would you mind repeating those as well?
So from March to December 11th, there were 55 cases in Montague, and since then, we've had a 140% increase in the number of cases in Montague.
That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the other thing that I have under unfinished business is in fact the committee meetings for the first 3 committees that are going to meet on February 8th. It would be Buildings and Grounds, Finance, and Insurance, as it's noted on the policy. And then the Curriculum and Child Study Team. For Buildings and Grounds is Dale and Paul. Finance is Dale and Paul. And the Curriculum and Child Study Team are Denise and Danielle, with myself and Mr. Capone as ex officio officers, I believe the terminology was. Those meetings will be before the regular meeting on the 8th. And I anticipate as introductory meetings that they would be approximately 15 minutes in duration. At least that's how it used to be when I was running in committee meetings, when I was served on the board before. So we're going to start with that guide, with the first meeting starting at 5:45 p.m.
Which one, Barbara?
That would be the Buildings and Grounds, and then Finance and Insurance at 6 p.m. And then Curriculum and CST at 6:15 p.m. Breaking the committees up, there's 6 committees. The next 3 will be done at the second regular meeting of February.
I'm concerned that 15 minutes is not nearly enough time to convene a new committee and get people the information that they need to have and reviewed.
Maybe we could do 5:30 to 6, just for Building and Grounds, get insurance, and then go 6 o'clock.
Well, it's just, first of all, can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm
so they
sorry.
can all hear you?
Could we possibly, at 5:35 or 5:30, do Building and Grounds? And then, at 6 o'clock, do curriculum? And then maybe at the next meeting, do the insurance?
Well, you can't split the finance and insurance, it's one committee.
Oh,
So you basically are limited to your topics. Again, as in the past, we came in, to the committees, and now that we're establishing them, I think the first goal of the committees should be to identify what their goals are going to be, which hopefully they will do some homework. Each member of the committee would do the homework before the meeting. They would come into the meeting, they would establish those goals and then carry them forth and fulfilling them and extending their meeting times as necessary. So not that I disagree with you that the meetings could go longer, Mr. Capone, but the initial meeting is basically to set the guidelines of what their goals are going to be in the committee meetings, using the policy for committees that can also be provided at the meeting, or before the meeting, because everybody can look it up. So I'd like to just stick with the 15-minute guideline so that it's basically, now that we're going into the committees, you can go in, quickly review the committee policy. You should be reviewing it before. Not telling you what to do, just saying it's something you can do and should do. And then once you're at the committee meeting, establish what your goals are, the topics that you would like to have discussed, and then bring forth to the board. And obviously at that point, Mr. Capone, you would contribute what you feel are concerns of the school to the committee members, and they would also include those into the goals of the committee. Anyone else have any questions on this? Is everybody able to make that, Dale, Paul, Danielle, and Denise, are you able to work with these? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we'll leave it as is, and I'll send an email to each one of you, not all of you, at the same email, and just communicate what you are going to be doing as far as committees.
one of the things that we had, one of the things that we had mentioned was to take up a committee was that initiative. And I believe it's part of Medicaid. So we would have to look that up, and then Mr. Capone will probably give us a lot more information on that.
Well, that would be something you would discuss at night, and then when you come to the committee, Mr. Capone, I actually thought you did say that one particular thing would be under curriculum child study team as far as the A2.
Yes.
Okay.
I think my point would be this, last year, just covering personnel with 3 new board members that had never sat on a board, we spent 3 hours in executive session doing just personnel. Okay, to try and get people up to speed as far as the daily operations of the district, things that happen, why, and giving them lots of knowledge on what those things are.
Well,
You're talking about we're a month in right now, and from these 3 committees, okay, I'm just wondering what we're going to accomplish in 15 minutes. That's going to be something that you're then going to bring forward and make a report to the board 30 minutes later.
I just explained, and I'll do so one more time. What the intention of this initial committee meeting is for the members of the committees to come in and meet with yourself and myself. You will bring to the table what your concerns are for that particular committee, or things that you would like that committee to address. The committee members will have done their research and looked at the committee policy. They will know what they're supposed to do under the policy. They will come to the table with the same information, and then we will all sit down and determine what the committee's goals are. And out of this first meeting for committees, I would like to see that those goals are established and then reported on at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Where in, I've been looking, but I could not find any description of exactly what the committees are. Do I go to NJSBA to find their guidelines?
There's committee policy, and then if we can't find enough there, then absolutely, we could even reach out to Ms. Hellewa and ask her for guidance on it as well.
Mr. Capone, you're smiling, do you know?
As far as the description is,
Of each committee.
committees can be anything. It's because I don't know that there's a New Jersey School Board approved committee list, because these are the ones.
Actually, they set up a workshop for it.
And
what I'm saying is you can create these any way that you like.
Okay.
Okay, there's not one way to do this.
actually, they're according to board policy.
Right.
Policy 9130 is what governs our committees. So there are standing committees, there are 6 of them, and then there are rules for each committee to follow. So unless we change and amend the policy, we cannot change the standing committees. Each year, these committees are reorganized, and if there's any special committees created, those special committees are dissolved in December and do not reorganize in January according to policy.
Barbara, can you email something to me, since this is new to me, about these committees, what you have there?
This is 9130, it's in our board policies, the critical reference manual that's available that's actually available to the whole public. 9130.
I'll look it up.
And then the New Jersey School Board's website, we all have access to that through our New Jersey School Board's website access. So you can look it up there too.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, so the other item I have for old business is we're going to revisit from January 8th, where we discussed during our reorganization meeting, resolution to move our board elections from November back to April. So I'm going to read this resolution. Moving the election of the board members of the Montague Township Board of Education from the first Monday in November to the, excuse me. Thank you. There was a typo. Not by myself. The first Tuesday in November to the third Tuesday in April. Whereas the election for members of the Montague Township Board of Education was held on the same date as the general election for more than 4 years. And whereas Public Law 2011 C-202 and NJSA 1960-1.1 provides that a Board of Education may move the election date of school board members from the first Monday in November to the third Tuesday in April. And again, let me just go back and correct, it's supposed to be from the first Tuesday in November to the third Tuesday in April through the adoption of a resolution at a duly advertised and convened public meeting, and by providing appropriate notice of such resolution to the county clerk not less than 85 days before the third Tuesday in April to take effect for that year's election. And whereas NJSA 1960-1.1 requires a change in the election of a school board members from the first Tuesday in November to the third Tuesday in April shall remain in effect for at least an additional 4 years. Whereas the Montague Township Board of Education believes that the students, parents, guardians, and constituents of the district are better served by changing the election date for the members of the Montague Township Board of Education to be held on the third Tuesday in April, as opposed to the first Tuesday of November. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to Public Law PL 2011 C-202 and NJSA 19:6-1.1, the Montague Township Board of Education changes the annual election date for its school board members from the first Tuesday in November to the third Tuesday in April, beginning in April 2021, and such that change shall remain in place for at least an additional 4 years, and be it resolved, further resolved, that pursuant to PL 2011 C-202 and NJSA 18A:13-12, the annual organization meeting of the Montague Township Board of Education appropriately take place following the April election. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Public Law 2011 C-202, members of the Montague Township Board of Education, whose terms would have expired December 2021, will serve in office only until the organization meeting to be held after the April 2021 election. And be it further resolved that the board secretary of the Montague Township Board of Education is authorized to immediately transmit and provide a certified copy of this resolution to the following officials and governing bodies: the municipal clerks of Montague Township, the Sussex County Clerk, the Sussex County Board of Elections, the Sussex County Superintendent of Elections, and the Executive Superintendent of Sussex County. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Speaking to
So, does everybody's term, I mean, obviously my term would then end in April unless I get reelected. When does, the term for somebody whose term would have ended December 31st, 2022, does that get extended to April of 2023? Or does that end in April of 2022?
To the advice that was provided to us in executive session on this through the lawyer, to answer your question, Glenn, that basically the state law is saying that all how do I say this, termination dates would be reflective of this change. I believe though it's specifically worded for just this particular year, so that would be a question we would have to ask. I could actually, you know, I'd rather, because this is up for discussion right now, I'd rather make a motion to take a break and go to executive, or I'm sorry, make a motion to go back to executive, and we'll call Mr. Kamingo and get an answer for that. Let's finish this discussion to make sure that we have all the questions for Mr. Kamingo, and we can go back into executive and give him a call. So let me break down specifically your question, because it is a good question, Glenn. Can you
I'm
just,
sorry, you want me to restate it?
yes, I do. I was just gonna ask you that, please.
Okay, I want to know what happens to everybody else's term. Do they all get pushed back 8 months, shortened by 8 months?
Okay.
Or does every other year get extended by 4 months?
I know that when they changed this, and just to give you the feedback, but when they changed this and I was on the board, all board members were extended for that initial year affected. And then after that, everybody went to the next election cycle. So based on what my experience was in 2012, when this was changed, the same thing would happen. Board members were shortened and other board members were extended.
That seems eminently fair. Do you also, are you aware of the impact that it has relative to the budget in the event that the school board doesn't pass one, as happened this past year?
Well, this would be giving the voice back to the voters on the budget. So as long as the voters are happy with the budget presented to them, I'm sure that they would vote to approve it.
And you know what happens if they don't?
Then what happens if they don't? That budget goes to the town council and then to the county superintendent, which most years prior to 2012, there's only one that I can recall that the voters voted down the budget and it went to the town council. But again, this is about, for me in particular, because we're in discussion right now, for me, this is about giving the voice back to the voters as a result of not only our school district, but other school districts that are taking advantage of a bank cap far exceeding the 2% in any given year that they choose, and then pushing that bank cap onto the public without a vote. And it was supposed to be, when this was passed, the explanation that was provided to the board at that time when I sat on the board was that bank cap would not be used arbitrarily, that if it went over 2% in November, that vote would go to the people and it would then be allowed by the people. Right now, we did not, well, last year we were given the ability of the board members here and the county superintendent's office, they kept it at 2.5%. But at any given time, other school districts have gone up as much as 14%. Some have gone even higher. And I really feel personally, as my individual on the board member now, this is very important to me. So I recognize what you're saying, but for many years, this was in practice. School board budgets were decided by the public, not by the board members themselves and or the superintendent.
So, again, you can't make a comparison to what happened in 2012 to what's happening now, because the funding formula is not the same. So you weren't dealing with state aid cuts back then. If you lost 50 kids, you remained flat. You still had all of the money that you still received. Whereas with the 7-year roll-in that you have right now with state aid cuts, with the 2 largest years of state aid cuts being last year and this coming year, you're talking about and saying that they took advantage of it. We were not the district. Contrary to, a public statement that was made, we didn't raise taxes 14%. Okay?
No, we were going to raise them
This is something,
6.78%.
no, that's not correct.
That's
Okay.
what you asked for, 6.78% was the preliminary, and
This
then
also-
it went down to 2.5%.
That is not correct. We presented, this is what it is that, based on all of those adjustments, right? We presented a preliminary budget. That's what we presented, preliminary budget, which you then have, under that circumstance, 6 weeks to work out all of the details. That's actually what the process is, to be able to account for all of the things that occurred during that time frame. What you're suggesting now, and just again, so everybody's clear, the governor will make his announcement at the end of February, the last week of February. The budget is due to the county office roughly a week later, so that it can be set up to go to approval. That's the amount of time. Instead of having 6 weeks between preliminary and setting, you're now going to have roughly 1 week if the numbers come out on time. Okay, which they haven't the last 3 years. So this is something that, again, in a year that we're taking a large cut. Again, last year it was anticipated 250,000, it's close to 300,000. We're looking at a similar cut this year. And not knowing what the impact on the overall funding formula is going to be because of COVID, because of whatever federal relief aid we're going to get. There's a large number of variables that are not going to be predictable the first week of March.
Mr. Capone, how much do we have in our cap reserve account right now?
What is the relevance of that to setting a budget?
I just like to,
None. No relevance.
I somehow we've been able to put into our cap reserve account, according to this audit report, as of June 30th, 2020, $1.6 million. So we have $1,678,000.
And if you pull this out, right, which is your long-range facility plan about the things that you're looking to accomplish and the things that were being budgeted for, that's because there was a plan in place that the board had things that they wanted to accomplish, because we don't meet the square footage requirement for the number of students that we serve here. Okay, so that was the plan, because they couldn't pass a referendum however many times. Okay, so the plan was is that through the operating budget, we were going to collect enough money to be able to service the students, to make sure that we have the square footage that's required by the state, because currently you don't have that.
Okay,
So the
again,
money in capital reserve was for that specific purpose, which again, this is something that, again, if you had a buildings and grounds meeting, we can go over as far as what the long range facility plan is. But for anybody that's not sitting on that committee and isn't aware of that because they don't ask questions or they haven't become well informed on these things, those monies are earmarked for the things that are on this list.
thank you for the answer. The reason for me asking this is because we've been able to put this amount of money, this very large amount of money, over 3 years' time into the budget. I'm glad to see that you have a targeted list and that has been provided to the board. However, as far as the square footage, I believe, again, Buildings and Grounds can look into your statement about that. but there are several school districts, including the neighboring school district. When we went to bring our 7th and 8th grade back, we met the square footage requirements to have 7th and 8th grade here in this school building. So I would have to validate your comment about that. And my point is that our budget has had a significant number of dollars in it that have been able to be put into cap reserve, which are specified for buildings and grounds and improvements to the schools. And basically, what I'm looking at as with a little over a $10 million budget in a smaller school enrollment, we have to be smarter with our money, and we have to give the voice back to the people of this township in order to allow them to make the decision on how much money they want to spend on their school district going forward. So again, we have the motions on the table that was first by Paul, seconded by Denise. And we have a question from Mr. Plosky regarding the future terms of the board that would be affected by this change. So I'm going to,
Do we have to go to executive session, or can we call him here? Because that's not ethical.
no, well, I mean, this is completely out in the open. I'm sorry.
You can call them here on this. This is a logistical component of this as far as.
Perfect.
It's not,
Can you give me, oh, we need your phone. Barbara.
Just 1 second. It's on the phone quite a bit. Jess, we're here. I'm going to be calling Mr. Camango. I hope in this could be. Hi, Jeff. This is Barbara Holstein, and we're in public session at our school board meeting. Would you be able to give me John's phone number? I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, his number came up under your number, I'm not sure how. Okay, thank you. But he's going to send me the phone number, so.
He's going to send me the phone number so I can call him. It sounds like that battery may be dying. Mr. Plosky, your technology device is for your public comment or your public participation. The battery's dying. Do you have another device?
Is it iPhone?
It looks to be an Android.
I have power pack, if you have a cord for it.
I do have a cord.
I don't know why.
Must have been, so we're gonna hook your phone up to a battery, Glenn, so that you can continue to stay. Hi, John, this is Barbara Holstein. We're in the middle of our discussion portion of the meeting regarding our moving the election from November to Tuesday. And I have a question from a board member, so I'm gonna hold this phone up to the mic, put you on speaker, and let Mr. Plosky ask you his question. Okay. We love technology, right? Okay, Mr. Plosky, Glenn?
Yes.
Mr. Kamengo is on the phone and can take your question.
Basically, John, my question was the resolution that they're talking about adopting, we changed the election date to April, making someone whose term expires December 31 of 2021 expire, I guess, at the first meeting after the election in April of 2021. My question was, what happens to people whose terms expire December 31, 2022, 2023? Are they pushed forward to the following April, or are they pulled back just like the one from this December to the April before?
Great question. My immediate reaction to that is that their terms would follow the same process as those abbreviated terms of members whose terms are going to expire now in April as opposed to December. But I'm happy to confirm that after the meeting.
Is that a sufficient answer, Mr. Plosky?
Honestly, it was garbled. I think I heard him say it'll follow the same pattern.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, being that we're in open, we still have discussion going, and we have John on the phone. Does anybody else have any legal questions regarding this resolution? Okay. John, I sincerely thank you for taking this question so that we could ask it out here in public. And
Oh, and also, the email, if this passes, the emails must go out this evening?
yes.
Correct.
All right, so thank you very much, John.
My pleasure. Please call again if there's anything else. It will.
Great, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, so we still have the motion on the table, and we've had discussion. Is there any further discussion?
I do. So this is a separate election. So this is a school election. So your turnout is going to be strictly people coming out to vote on your school budget.
As it was, yes,
Right, and
prior to 2012.
And there's a cost that is associated with that, but we don't know what that cost is.
Actually, the cost from previous board experience, as well as Denise's research on this subject, is anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000. However, that cost savings that may be looked at, in my opinion, the taxpayers have more say-so over the tax levy that's being imposed upon them, because they're not going to be forced to accept the school board tax levy or the use of bank cap without a vote. So they would essentially be having their vote back is actually going to give them the opportunity to save more money on their tax levy and have more control over the discretion of spending in the school district, in their own school district.
Any cuts or mistakes that are made in that, right, are going to be felt by the students pre-K to 8.
You would be predetermining that there's going to be a failed budget, and that's not fair to place that kind of.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that there are multiple things that you're changing right now. And in doing so, with the state aid cuts, which again, didn't exist in 2012, okay? With turning this over on a short time frame, okay, that anything that's adjusted is going to be felt by the students here. That is the point that I'm making. That is a fact. That's not up for debate.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
That is a
I
fact.
was going to add to
So
when you're
I'm
talking.
turning it back over to the public again, and I'm all for that. Okay, I don't think it's a good idea this year, personally. If you did it the following year, when the state aid cut is not going to exist, and you're not going to be dealing with a $300,000 cut in state aid or more, that to me is more responsible than having multiple variables that you can't plan for. And again, I keep going back to the ethics, talking about, making decisions based on the interest of all students. I think that there's a risk here, and that's what I'm waiting for.
I have another question. So this was done prior to 2012. In 2012, Governor Christie changed it for a reason. How many school districts now are doing this, are going back to, in Sussex County, do you know how many school districts are going back to?
There are some that did not change, and Frieden is also one district that is working to try to go back.
But do you have an exact number of how many are going back to? I'm just.
No, I don't,
concerned
because my
going
decisions
backwards.
this decision is being made on what I want to do for I'm recommending.
What you want to do, I understand that, and I'm questioning what I want to do because I
This
want
was-
the kids to get
Ms.
cut.
Karamucci, this was in your board packet. You could have looked up that information before you came to the meeting tonight.
I thought you had all the information.
No, that's why it's in your board packet.
So it's not in my board packet of how many schools in Sussex County are doing this.
First of all, you didn't email me that question. And secondly, it's something that you could have looked up with the information in your board packet. This has been being discussed since January 8th.
I was waiting for information from you guys. Thank you.
Did
It
you-
seems like it's one-sided. When it's something that you want to do, it's okay, but when it's something that we have questions on, it's not. I'm
Absolutely.
questioning why we're going backwards instead of versus going forwards, because my concern is for the students.
And this is going to not only help the students, it's going to help the taxpayers of the school district. It's going to help keep the budget in a position that it reflects not only the needs of the district, but the needs of the taxpayers. The needs of the district meaning the students, the parents, and the taxpayer. And again, Ms. Karamucci, you did not email me a question, and you have had since January 8th to look up this information and or ask questions, including what I put in your board packet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so seeing that there's no further discussion, we'll move to a roll call.
Ms. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Belmont,
Yes.
Mr. Brislin,
Yes.
Ms. Chrisman,
Yes.
Ms. Holstein,
Yes.
Mr. Pulaski,
No.
Ms. Venice,
No.
Motion carries. So, in accordance with, the recommendation of our law firm, there is a letter that has been drafted. I will present this letter to Donna, so you can submit this letter tonight to the appropriate, entities that are
Governing board,
in governing bodies, thank you, that are also in the resolution.
and also with the corrections on that Monday date for Tuesdays.
It was right there, right into the record. Is there any other unfinished business from other board members?
I have a question. On January 8th and also on the 13th, we had asked for that update from the Porzio law firm. Have we had any information from that at this point?
Mr. Capone?
It was reported out at the last meeting that they were coming for the next meeting.
They were saying, I'm sorry, thank you.
So they will be at the February 8th meeting to give us a report. Any other unfinished business? Okay, moving on to the agenda item of new business. Is there any new business? Mr. Capone? Seeing that there is no new business, and having no reason to proceed back into executive, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
9:35. So I think we have Paul and then Denise, correct?
Yes.
All in favor? Any opposed? Have a great night. Thank you, public, for coming.
Thank you.